You notice it happening again. Someone walks into the room carrying stress like a dark cloud, and within seconds, your chest tightens. Their anxiety becomes yours. Their frustration settles into your body as if it originated there. And while everyone else in the room seems fine, you're the one who leaves feeling like you've been emotionally gutted. If you've ever wondered why you're the one who absorbs what others barely notice, what you're about to discover will completely reframe how you see yourself. Because this isn't about being too empathetic or lacking boundaries. This is about brain architecture. And if you don't understand how emotional contagion actually works, you'll keep blaming yourself for a system you never chose. The invisible transfer nobody warned you about. Here's what makes emotional contagion so dangerous. It doesn't announce itself. You don't consciously decide to absorb someone's mood. It happens beneath your awareness, in the first few milliseconds of interaction, before your logical brain even realizes what's occurring. Neuroscience calls this automatic mimicry, and it's one of the most primitive mechanisms your brain possesses. When someone near you expresses an emotion, your brain doesn't just observe it, it simulates it. Your mirror neuron system fires in the exact same pattern, as if you were feeling that emotion yourself. This isn't metaphorical. When someone frowns, the muscles in your face make micro movements toward a frown. When someone's voice rises in anger, your nervous system begins preparing for conflict, even if that conflict has nothing to do with you. Most people experience this to some degree, but for some, the system doesn't just activate, it dominates. While others can observe distress and maintain emotional distance, you feel it in your body as if it's your own. Your brain lacks what psychologists call emotional differentiation. The boundary that should exist between you and them is porous, almost non-existent. The hardware difference you didn't choose of this isn't about being desensitive, though you've probably been told that your entire life. This is about brain architecture. Research in effective neuroscience shows that people who experience high emotional contagion have hyperactive limbic systems. Your amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center, responds more quickly and more intensely to emotional stimuli in your environment. Think of most people's emotional systems like a thermostat. Someone enters the room upset, their system registers it, processes it, and decides whether to respond. There's a buffer, but your system works like a lightning rod. Emotional charge doesn't get evaluated. It gets conducted directly into your nervous system. There's no pause. The emotion simply transfers. This happens because of high sensory processing sensitivity. Your nervous system is designed to detect subtle changes in your environment. While others might need someone to explicitly state they're upset, you're reading micro-expressions, vocal tone shifts, body language, and even changes in the energy of a space. You're gathering hundreds of data points that others miss entirely. And all of that data gets processed as potential threat information, which activates your stress response. Your brain also shows reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for emotional regulation. So not only are you receiving emotional information at a higher volume, but the system that's supposed to help you modulate that information is under-resourced. You're experiencing emotions at full intensity with limited capacity to regulate them. Why evolution created emotional sponge if this is so exhausting? Why does it exist? Why didn't natural selection eliminate this trait? This question unlocks everything. Because what feels like a burden in modern life was actually a survival advantage. For most of human history, go back tens of thousands of years. Your ancestors lived in small tribes where social cohesion meant survival. The ability to rapidly detect emotional shifts in the group wasn't just useful, it was life-saving. If someone in your tribe returned from hunting looking terrified, your brain needed to know immediately that danger was near. If the group leader was growing angry, you needed to sense that shift before it turned into aggression. The people who could read emotional atmospheres quickly became the early warning system for the entire group. They sensed betrayal, detected threats, and felt danger in the air. They weren't absorbing emotions because they were weak. They were the tribe's radar system. And tribes with strong radar systems survive longer. But here's the cruel irony. That same trait that kept your ancestors alive now leaves you exhausted. You're no longer in a tribe of 30 people. You're living in a world of coworkers, social media, crowded spaces, and constant exposure to unprocessed emotions. Your radar system is still running at full capacity, but instead of scanning for predators, it's being overwhelmed by the ambient anxiety of modern life. The negativity bias multiplier. Now let's address why you absorb negativity more intensely than positivity. Your brain has what neuroscientists call a negativity bias. It's hardwired to prioritize negative information over positive information. And when you combine that with high emotional contagion, you get a devastating multiplier effect. You spend an hour with someone who's genuinely happy, and you might feel a mild uplift. But spend an hour with someone who's bitter or anxious, and you feel gutted. You carry that weight for hours, sometimes days. Why the asymmetry? Because your brain treats negative emotions as survival-relevant information. Happiness doesn't signal danger, but anger, fear, and frustration all indicate that something in the environment might be a threat. So your brain amplifies those signals. It prioritizes them. It ensures you cannot ignore them. This is why one negative interaction can erase the emotional benefit of 10 positive ones. Your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do for an environment that no longer exists. The hidden cost of chronic absorption. Here's what most people don't understand. They think emotional contagion is just about feeling bad in the moment. But chronic exposure to others' negative emotions without adequate recovery doesn't just make you feel bad. It restructures your brain. Studies using brain scans show that people who consistently absorb negative emotions begin to show increased baseline activity in their amygdala and decreased activity in their hippocampus, the region responsible for memory and emotional context. Over time, your brain starts to expect negativity. It begins scanning for it even when it's not there. You walk into a neutral situation already braced for emotional impact. This creates what psychologists call affective residue. You finish a difficult conversation, but your body doesn't finish processing the emotion. It lingers. Then you have another emotional exposure before you've fully recovered. Then another. You're living in a state of emotional overdraft, constantly processing other people's feelings while your own emotional needs remain unmet. The long-term consequences are profound. Chronic emotional absorption leads to compassion fatigue, a state where your capacity to feel for others becomes so depleted that you either shut down entirely or become resentful. You start avoiding people. You isolate, not because you don't care, but because caring has become unsustainable. What your body is trying to tell you when you feel that familiar heaviness after absorbing someone's negativity, your body isn't betraying you, it's communicating. That exhaustion, that sudden need to be alone, that overwhelming urge to shut down. These aren't signs of weakness. They're signals that your nervous system has hit capacity. Think of your emotional regulation system like a battery. Every interaction that requires you to process someone else's emotional state drains that battery. And unlike most people, yours requires extended periods of solitude and low stimulation environments to recover. When you ignore those signals and push through the exhaustion, you're not building resilience. You're overriding your body's protective mechanisms. This is why you suddenly become irritable or numb after prolonged social exposure. Your nervous system has shifted into self-preservation mode. It's no longer absorbing. It's blocking. The blocking doesn't feel good either, because now you're disconnected from yourself. You've spent so much energy managing external emotional input that you've lost touch with your own internal state. A boundary myth. You've probably been told 1,000 times that you just need better boundaries. Set limits. Say no more often. Don't let people dump their problems on you. And while those things can help, they fundamentally misunderstand the problem. Because emotional contagion doesn't require someone to verbally dump on you. It happens through presence alone. Someone can sit next to you in complete silence, and if they're radiating anxiety, your system will detect and absorb it. You can have the firmest boundaries in the world, and emotional contagion will still occur, because it's happening at a neurological level that precedes conscious choice. Boundaries help you manage behavior, but they don't stop the automatic transfer of emotional states. What you actually need isn't stronger boundaries. You need emotional hygiene. You need practices that help you discharge absorbed emotions before they accumulate. You need to learn the difference between an emotion that originated in you and an emotion that entered you from someone else. And most importantly, you need environments that aren't constantly flooding your system with emotional input. The recalibration you need here is the truth nobody wants to tell you. You cannot rewire your brain to stop being a highly sensitive emotional conductor, but you can learn to live in a way that accounts for how your system actually works, instead of how you wish it worked. This means accepting that you have a lower tolerance for emotional chaos than most people. And that's not a moral failing. This means recognizing that certain people and environments will always be depleting, and you need to limit your exposure accordingly. This means understanding that what others call socializing, you experience as emotional labor, and you need recovery time that others don't. Most importantly, this means stopping the pattern of absorbing, ignoring, and collapsing. Start tracking what happens to your body during and after emotional exposure. Notice the physical sensations, the tightness in your chest, the fog in your mind, the sudden fatigue. These are data points. Your nervous system is telling you when it's being overloaded. The question is whether you're willing to listen and respond before you hit empty. You're not broken because you absorb other people's negativity. You're operating with a different nervous system configuration, one that was advantageous in a different context. The challenge isn't to become less sensitive. The challenge is to build a life that doesn't punish you for being wired this way. And that starts with understanding that emotional contagion isn't a character flaw, it's neuroscience.